Good evening out there. Everybody in the Panhandle, welcome to Eating the Elephant. We're on about our 23rd, 24th episode, and we're giving you recovery tips from Hurricane Michael, and we're putting out some insurance information. I've gotten an awful lot of feedback lately from people that have gone back and watched some of the earlier episodes, and they've mentioned that they were really timely back then, and they wish they'd watched them a little bit earlier. So what we may do is we may go back at this point in the series, we may go back and start picking up some of those past issues that we've already discussed and just tapping on them a little bit again every once in a while, because something that you saw or heard or maybe had studied 2 or 3 months ago, number one, your head was in a very different place than it is now, and you can probably process information a little bit better. I think everyone's a little calmer. I think the panic has somewhat subsided, so I think you might retain information better, and frankly, you may have just flat forgotten. There's an awful lot of stuff going on. We've pushed a lot of information out there, and drinking from a fire hose isn't an easy thing to do. So if we repeat some things, don't be surprised. Tonight, we're not really going to do that. What I want to talk to you about tonight is something a little bit down the road. Most of us have a good ways to go before we close our claim and finish and have our houses back where we wanted. We're 4 months out, and we still have months to go. I think a lot of us before we're where we need to be. There's still houses across the street from me that are going to get a bulldozer that haven't yet. They don't appear to be insurance issues. They appear to be issues of practicality, near as I can tell. And it's just taken a long time to get anything done these days. I think we all know that everything takes more time, more energy, more effort than normal. So I do think everyone is being more patient in general. I'm glad to see that, because getting frustrated with traffic or with waiting in a lunch line probably isn't very helpful. I will say this, it's probably not a good time to be patient when it comes to your claim. I think it is a really good time, as I've said for weeks, to press. You need to press your adjuster, you need to press your insurance folks, you need to press your agent. If you've hired a PA, you need to press them as well. If you need to call them every single day to get what you need out of them, then you need to do that. You need to make sure that what you're doing is trying to get your claim on the top of what might be a pretty substantial pile. Not that we don't feel bad for everybody else, but you need to work in your own self-interest a little bit right now. Again, as I've said before, you need to advocate for yourself and you need to persevere. Patience but persistence has been our theme. I want to talk to you about what's going to happen sort of at the end of the claims process, and we'll hit this again somewhat later. But there are people that had relatively light damage that may be finishing up. They may have gotten lucky with a roofer and a drywaller, and they may be about ready to be through. I know that's going to be very surprising to some of you that still have quite a long way to go. You may be staring at exposed studs in your house, and you may not be living at home. But what I want you guys to do is think about the very end of this process. I don't want you to leave money on the table. I don't want you to shortchange yourself. I know that there are those out there that feel like insurance companies are out to get them and they're out to retain as much money as they can. I don't happen to believe that. I think it's pretty obvious from the things that I've said. But here's the thing. I do see clients leaving money on the table and shortchanging themselves, either out of ignorance or overwork, just being tired of the process, and at some point, some people just want to throw up their hands and be through. Now, while you can certainly do that, there's quite a bit of money at stake here if you think about it, and even if it's only $500 or $1,000 at the end of the day, I think it's worth a little bit of paperwork and a little review in order to recover that money. So here's what I want you to do at the end of the process. Once you are completely finished, once you are moved back in your house, you're safe, happy, you're feeling some normalcy again, your tendency is going to want to be completely through with this, to walk away, to be done. By that point, you may have been wrestling with repairs to your home and insurance companies and mortgage companies and all of this for 8, 9 months, a year. So you may just be tired of it. What I'm trying to tell you is it might be in your best interest to go back and review your own claim. And what I'm going to suggest is this. We've talked about buckets before. You have a building bucket and a contents bucket, an additional living expense bucket. I want us to go through and let's reevaluate those buckets. The first thing I want you to do is take your building bucket. And what I want you to do is go through there and make sure you've recovered all of your recoverable depreciation. What is the best idea is go look through all of the payments that you got from your insurance company for your Coverage A building and for your Coverage B other structures amount. And I want you to make sure that every check you wrote or every check that was written on your behalf is something that you've been paid for by the insurance company. If an insurance company pays a contractor, someone like that direct, it's a little bit less of an issue. But if you have written a check out of any account for insurance, something that should be covered by insurance to recover, then make sure that there's an offsetting payment from your insurance company, because a lot of people forget that there is depreciation you can recover, and they forget to send that documentation to the insurance company and recover that money. I don't want you to do that. Do not shortchange yourself. The insurance company owes you what they owe you, and you need to make sure that you help them get it to you. This is going to be the same with additional living expense. And don't forget, additional living expense is more than just rent. It could be your increased power bill for having to run all those fans and dryers for a month. If your power bill is normally $150 and it's $400 one month, we've certainly seen that issue. You're going to have to eat out quite a bit more. You'll either have gas or you'll have some sort of mileage allowance, depending on how you work it out with your adjuster. So you need to make sure not to leave that money on the table either. That's money that you were entitled to, that's in your policy that you've paid for. So make sure you stay with that. Now, contents is going to be a little bit different, and it's a little bit more difficult. During the building process, you're going to get a lot of help. Hopefully you've gotten some help from your adjuster. If you haven't, chances are you've gotten help from a public adjuster. You will have gotten help from a contractor and probably from your mortgage company. You may not think it's help, but it's certainly some oversight. There may be inspectors involved, other people like that, engineers. But with contents, you're a little bit on your own. You have to make your own list in many cases. If someone like a pack-out service has taken stuff away, you're still going to have to go back and double check them, make sure the payments are correct, and make sure that they are returning all of the things that they say they inventoried and took with them to begin with. You don't want a 60-inch TV suddenly disappearing and appearing on someone else's mantle. So what I want you to do, if you've done what I've asked you to do and you've taken a lot of photos, then what you want to do is take those photos and spread them out. Just clear everything off the dining room table, spread them out, and if you can, sort them by room. That's going to make it easy for you. And then go through those photos and then look at what's in your house and look what's there. And make sure you're comparing things properly, mostly to see if you can see that there's something missing. If you put things back on your walls, for instance, and you look at a photo and you may go, oh, well, I put that there, but we had one on the other wall, something like that. It may remind you of some things, and you may be able to add some things to a list that you had forgotten earlier, now that your head's a little clearer and you're looking at it from a different point of view. Look around. I talked to you earlier about making your contents list and sort of creatively visualizing what's going on. In your head, you stand there in the middle of your room and you turn all four directions and you sort of visualize what's in the room. I would encourage you to go through this process again with your contents list in front of you and see if you've missed anything. It may not be big, but if you missed 3, 4, 5 things and they're a couple $100s a piece, 5 things times $200, that's $1,000. The other thing it will help you do is make sure that you have properly accounted for and received your recoverable depreciation. Check receipts, check the money that you've spent. If you have spent a dime on contents, you go back and you check the payment you got from your insurance company and make sure that you have recovered not only your recoverable depreciation, but any additional cost. That item may cost more than it did when you originally bought it, and you're entitled to that money too. If you have any questions about that, go back and watch Monday's video. It wasn't part of the Eating the Elephant series, but on Monday I did 4 minutes on recoverable depreciation and your contents. Very quick look, very simple, very straightforward, and I even had numbers for you. Again, focus on the increased cost. I think some people look at the recoverable depreciation, and since it's on your initial scope, sometimes that's easy to recover, and you don't think about the fact that, well, that 52-inch TV I bought before now may cost more money. That couch that I bought for $400 now costs $600. So in addition to your recoverable depreciation, don't forget that you're entitled to the increased cost of an item of like, kind, and quality. Finally, when you're done with all of these buckets, you're clear-headed. You've gone through this. You've maybe made an additional list. Say there's $1,000 or $2,000 there. That's certainly worth submitting. And even if it's a year, 18 months out, package that up, send it to the insurance company, and ask them to send you a check. It's not uncommon at all to forget things and to refile them many, many months after the storm and after your claim has been closed, supposedly for good. Finally, what I want you to do, and I predict that no one watching this video will do this, but it will be worth your time, I think, if you do, is go through and read your policy. Yes, it is god awful. Yes, it will absolutely cure insomnia. But what I'm going to tell you makes sense for this reason. There are little goodies in your policy that no one ever thinks of. For example, at the end of the day, there's usually built-in coverage for, say, trees. Now, I'm not talking about tree removal because you were probably paid for that. But what you probably weren't paid for and didn't know to ask for is in most policies, homeowners policies, you have, say, $500 or $1,000 for trees. That's not removal. That's the value of the tree. And if you have a large pine, a magnolia, maybe a nice oak that fell, you're entitled to recover the value of that tree, or at least part of it. And if there's $500 or $1,000 built into the policy, and you read through that with a highlighter, you might say, hey, is it worth reading a really boring 60-page policy if you could recover $1,000? I would read a 60-page policy every single day if you paid me $1,000 to do it. So there are going to be little things like that that will help you to maybe recover a few extra dollars. And it's like finding money in your pocket. Everybody loves the feeling of reaching in a pocket and finding 20 bucks you didn't know was there. So what if it's $500 or $1,000? That's going to be an even better feeling. And what I will also say is this is going to be itchy, but you will understand your policy better. Yes, a great deal of it's still going to be confusing. And I hate where a policy gives you coverage and then excludes it later with an endorsement and then has an exception to the exclusion to add it back. It makes it super confusing for everybody. It's part of why I have a job, is to understand those kinds of things. But it is very frustrating. I'm not saying you've got to understand every single word of the policy, but you will have a little bit better understanding of your coverage and how it functions and some of the intent of some of the exclusions, for instance. If something is excluded as a business item, well, that's supposed to be something that you would normally cover under a business policy. So there are going to be things like that you'll understand. It will give you one more thing in your arsenal, and it will give you an opportunity to fix your coverage. There's going to be very, very few of us after this storm that want to leave our policy exactly as it was. People will want to increase coverage. People will want to look at deductibles. People will want to say, oh, well, that wasn't covered before. I want to see if it can be covered now. It will give you a good base from which to help to interview a new insurance agent if that's something that you feel like you need to do and replace your coverage elsewhere. Even if you just want, if you're happy with your experience, hurricane notwithstanding, but if you were treated well by your insurance company and by your agent, you can take that information, take your experience, go in, sit down, and correct and fix your coverage, tweak it more to your liking, and you'll have hopefully a better experience if this is to ever happen again. Thanks for watching. If you have any topics that you want us to cover that I haven't yet, please let us know. If you'll PM me or if you'll drop something in on our Facebook page, our agency Facebook page, @Hutt Insurance. And if you will, try to be specific. If you're not, we'll do the best we can. And if we approach a question here and we don't fully answer it, let me know. We can certainly improve our product. I appreciate you watching. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you on Sunday.